Florida Panthers kicked off game one of their 5-game road trip out in Western Canada, where they have been about 500 on the road this season, while the Calgary Flames have been about 500 as well at home this season. So how did that fare on Tuesday night's affair in Calgary? We'll talk about that more on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm your host, Armando Velez. You can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. You can also follow the national show, Locked On NHL, and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. We'll be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. So, Florida Panthers, they kick off their first game of this 5-game Western Canadian trip with a little Seattle in it. And they laid an egg on the first one by a final score of 5-1 in Calgary. This was a game where the Calgary Flames, in their last four, their last 4 games included that first game against the Florida Panthers in Sunrise, Florida, just a few weeks ago, had given up 20 goals in their last 4. So they gave up 6, then they gave up 4, gave up 6 again, and then they gave up 4. So that's the momentum that the Calgary Flames were carrying into this game, where they were welcoming in the Florida Panthers, their first game in Canada in general this season, first time they've been crossing borders as well for this one. And a few team news for this one. Mason Marchment was back in the lineup. He played on that third line right wing. Maxim Mammon has been added to the taxi squad, and Owen Tippett has been called up, where he got 4 assists in 2 games for the Charlotte Checkers, but he was a scratch in this one. The biggest storyline of this one was Sam Bennett returning to Calgary for the first time since being traded on April 12th of last season. Played 402 games for the Calgary Flames and was shifted really all around the lineup. Averaged around 13 minutes of ice time during his time in Calgary, and then you trade him to the Florida Panthers. You shift him into that second line with Jonathan Huberdeau and Anthony Duclair, and then that line just gets up and running. They nicknamed it the 911 line to start just last season. And what they've been doing, that line has been doing, and Sam Bennett, his overall production with averaging a point per game since being traded, getting 2 of his hat tricks of his 3 during his career under a Florida Panthers sweater. And the fact that he's been adjusting to a new scenery after requesting a trade, he got his wish. It worked well for Sam Bennett. It worked well for the Calgary Flames, and they're a better team right now as well. You gotta like what both teams have kind of gotten in return, both in the short term right now. Don't know what the long term aspects look like, especially because Calgary still needs to develop Emil Hyman, the second round pick, and see where their second round pick that they got from the Panthers lands this time and who they pick out of that. But as far as the short term and the right now, both teams are really benefiting. And the Florida Panthers, they extended Sam Bennett as well, so they got a little bit of term for Bennett. And Bennett spoke to the media before the game. He talked about how there's a lot of great memories. He talked about a lot. Also, he talked about a lot about his playoff performance, because even though the Calgary Flames didn't make the playoffs every single year, Sam Bennett always showed throughout the playoffs during his time in Calgary. And that's what the Florida Panthers, when they made this trade, which is, we're almost going on a year of acquiring Sam Bennett. It's been 9 months since the Florida Panthers acquired him. We're recording this on January 19th. He got traded on April 12th on the day of the trade deadline. I mean, I think it was about like 30 minutes before the trade deadline expired that the Florida Panthers make this move. So it's a pretty it's a pretty good situation that the second line center put himself in with this trade, and starting with a request of it. And the Florida Panthers, we talked a little bit about team bonding. I know we're coming off a podcast on talking about a loss, and a loss that was not even really close. But the team bonding aspect, they went dog sledding in the western part of Alberta, Banff, um, Alberta. I looked it up on the GPS, and it's almost on the border of the next province. I'm not sure. Is there a province between British Columbia and Alberta? I'm not sure. And looking this up right now as we speak. This is the difference between doing it on YouTube. Yep, there. It's British Columbia is the province that's right next to Alberta. But yeah, dog sledding for the first time. Sam Bennett even talked about how he's never been dog sledding during his time in Calgary, and then he talks about how he likes the sunshine and weather way more than he does the snow and probably negative degree weather that he faced out in Calgary. But uh, still, both teams really benefited from this trade, and definitely looking forward to more production of Sam Bennett as he continues. And he scored a goal in this one. We'll talk about that more in the next segment, but he scored in this one in his return, so it kind of felt a little good for Sam Bennett. I'm sure he did too. He signed a puck for a fan as well, from what I saw on the Twitter. So that was pretty cool, and it was a pretty cool night for the NHL as well, as they honor Willie O'Ree. The whole NHL honor Willie O'Ree, as the Boston Bruins retired his jersey for breaking the color barrier in the NHL in the late 50s. So a great overall night for the NHL. It might have not resulted well for the Florida Panthers, but as far as the whole NHL, it was a pretty good night there for a big celebration for someone who is a inspiration in this game. We saw how Anthony Duclair, as the Hockey Diversity Alliance, and the Tape Out Hate, and him bringing that tape to his teammates and them using it in warmups the other day. And the NHL has had an issue with equality when it comes to blacks and whites in the playing hockey, and not just the NHL, hockey in general. But Willie O'Ree, with breaking the color barrier, and then people like Anthony Duclair and Wayne Simmons with the Hockey Diversity Alliance, it's just great to see the work that they're putting in to make this a game that everybody could participate in. So I think that it's just a beautiful story and a beautiful opportunity to create change in this game. So definitely something that I'm excited about. Before we go on to the next segment to talk about Tuesday night's 5-1 loss against the Calgary Flames, I first want to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's the new year, so it means New Year's resolution. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill. You want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By like week 3, you might be thinking, what is this? Is it not worth it? Where's the chocolate? Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Here's an idea for the new year to go get all your secret treat stashes at home or in the pantry or in the office or in the car, wherever. Throw out all the sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. So when you have cravings, a snack or treat, you can reach for something that's healthy and tastes incredible. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. And there's so many flavors to choose from: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and many more. In fact, Built is always coming out with a new limited time flavor. So check built.com often to see what's new. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. So for this game against the Calgary Flames, which was the first of a 5-game road trip in Western Canada and Seattle, the Florida Panthers came out with lines of Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barkov, Sam Reinhart, Jonathan Huberdeau, Sam Bennett, Anthony Duclair, Frank Vetrano, Anton Lundell, and Mason Marchment, Ryan Lomberg, another person returning to Calgary, Eetu Luostarinen, and Patrick Hornquist. Defensive pairings were Mackenzie Weegar, Aaron Ekblad, Gus Forsling, Radko Gudas, and Oli Juolevi and Brandon Montour, with Spencer Knight starting in place of Bob. I was thinking more of Bob would start 4 out of the 5, and it's weird to think what what direction the Florida Panthers are going to eventually go when they do have their back-to-back on Thursday and Friday against Edmonton and Vancouver. But this game from the start, the Florida Panthers, when it came to getting set, when it came to passing the puck in the middle, the Calgary Flames found every which way to deflect passes and not allow the Florida Panthers to get in the zone entries necessary in order to create opportunities to disrupt Jacob Markstrom in this game. But just shortly into the first period, Carter Verhaeghe gets called for tripping, and right off the draw, 23 seconds in, the goalie, Spencer Knight, makes 2 saves, one by Gaudreau, a second Tkachuk to Gaudreau, and then Anderson gets 2 opportunities at it. And worst part is it's his first goal of the season. So what a way to get his first goal of the season, where Spencer Knight was just way out of his crease, couldn't reposition himself after the first save, and then right then and there, a quick deficit, and that's something that the Florida Panthers on the road this season have just been off to very slow starts on the road, and it's weird. It's just so strange how different this team is at home versus where they are on the road, and it just came down to off the draw as well, and how they position themselves. And both power play goals. I know I'm jumping a little ahead, but on the third goal of the game, the Florida Panthers, they lose the draw, and then right then and there, Johnny Gaudreau shoots one in, and it's tipped in by Sean Monahan, and it just came down to getting set, winning a faceoff. I know the faceoffs are not the end all be all, but just the ability to get set after losing it is just really the concerning part. And the Panthers as well, when it comes to giving up the rushes as well. After the first period, the Calgary Flames were out rushing the Florida Panthers 5-1, and 4-2 in odd man rushes, and then the amount of stretch passes they connected as well, which means that they're out skating their opposition. So that's what the Calgary Flames were doing, while what the Florida Panthers weren't doing. And that the second one is another sloppy play where Panthers were unable to clear the zone. And this one was one where Spencer Knight could have saved it, but there was so many deflections: a deflection off Radko Gudas, a deflection off Mackenzie Weegar, and then Blake Coleman shoots one at a weird angle and then gets it past Spencer Knight. And Spencer Knight could have gotten that one and just out of position. Everyone's like scrambling for the puck. And then Blake Coleman, not only is he scores against the Panthers in this one, but he scored in their last matchup as well. So Blake Coleman, a guy who is very familiar with the Cats from his time in Tampa Bay, is just he the season series is done between these two teams, but I'm sure Blake Coleman is kind of missing playing the Panthers after tonight's game. That's for sure. And I usually try not to complain about officials in this one as well. Patrick Hornquist was tripped with about 2 minutes left in the first, wasn't called, and then was slashed again. Not again. He was slashed in the second period. Only comes back for one shift of 22 seconds, and then doesn't return to the game. And that was not the best games for the officials in this one, but the the shifting of the lines that Andrew Burnett had to do after that was a little difficult. And even though they had a hard time getting into the offensive zone where Calgary was clogging up the middle, they had opportunities on the power play where both their first power play attempt in the first period, they had controlled all of the zone time and got one shot on goal. And then they had a 4-on-3 as well. And one of those power plays, they lose a draw, they clear, the Calgary Flames clear. And that's what I talk about with special teams and off the draw. The Panthers had a hard time when they were down a man, but they were having a hard time when they were doing up a man too. And it gave the Calgary Flames a little bit of time to get their extra man on as the 4-on-4 was ending, because the 4-on-4 happened at the end of the first period with Jonathan Huberdeau and Matthew Tkachuk. And the Florida Panthers on that rare 4-on-3 had all that space, all that time to just work it around and just try to make Jacob Markstrom uncomfortable. And the Calgary Flames, you got to also give credit to them. They were also getting into shooting lanes as well in this one. So the Panthers were just a little bit overwhelmed in this one, as well as the Calgary Flames were just getting bodies in front, and they were helping out their goalie, and that's what resulted in 29 shots on goal. I'm looking at their blocks. I mean, Florida had one more block than Calgary, but I feel like every single time it was in front of the net, you saw that the Calgary Flames were just bouncing everything off. And there was a shot chart that, from what I saw from the second period on, most of Florida's shots were not in the middle of the slot, and Calgary's were too. And two of their goals that they had in this one, they're both the fourth one and the fifth, both came off rushes, breakaways, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back in this one. And just the it was just a matter of not being in position, not just a lot of puck watching as well, and just not forcing it outside. Randy Moeller, a lot of the time during the intermission, talked about forcing it more outside to use your speed, to draw penalties. And the Florida Panthers just had a hard time doing that. And the Calgary Flames did not look like a team that gave up 20 goals in a 4-game stretch, when this one they only gave up 1. So unlike the Panthers to score only 1 goal. And with this one, the Florida Panthers streak of defensemen recording a point in the season has ended at 39 games. So throughout the first 38 games, the Florida Panthers, a defenseman of the Florida Panthers, recorded a point, and that ended. So tough with the Florida Panthers kicking off game 1 of this road trip, but Sam Bennett getting that goal off a loose puck. Carter Hagee shoots it. Mason Marchment scrambling for it, and then gets it to Sam Bennett right on front of the doorstep. And then Sam Bennett records a goal in this one. And weird thing about it is that the Scotiabank Saddle Dome played Sweetness a few seconds after the Panthers scored. So that was kind of funny, and I don't know if that was done on purpose, but I think the DJ of the Scotiabank Saddle Dome was a little unaware that that was the song that the Florida Panthers used for their goals. But it was great to see Sam Bennett score. And Andrew Burnett talked about it after the game that he takes blame for a lot of the out of position that the Florida Panthers were in, and a lot of it has to do with preparation, mental preparation, as the Florida Panthers are very comfortable at home, but they just haven't when they've taken their show on the road. And it's a little bit of a concern. Not gonna lie, 5-5-5 now for the Cats on the road with 4 left on this road trip, and they'll be going on a little bit of a road trip as well to end the first part of the season before the quote unquote Olympic break for the Cats and the NHL. And you got to have a little bit of something positive to look into when the Olympic break does come about, because now the the Florida Panthers are in a position right now where they're still set to win the division if they continue playing well. I know the Tampa Bay Lightning won last night on the road against the LA Kings. The Florida Panthers still have a better points percentage than Tampa Bay, but it's the Florida Panthers just really got to get it going on the road, and it starts with uh, how Andrew Burnett helps prepare his team, because this team could very well play as well on the road as they do at home. Am I saying like score like six goals or 9 goals or even get close to 10? I'm not saying that, but the amount of wins that they've picked up at home, it's not a fluke whatsoever. It like the the fact that they've won that much and scored that much, it just doesn't happen by accident. And it's just about learning how to say, "Hey, I know we're not at home, but we got to remember how to play our game." And just go back to that. Go back to telling yourselves, "Play our game. Let's play the game that we know how to play." And I think it starts with that, and then if the players really just go back to just that simple thought, I think that's going to really help reflect on the ice. And I think a lot of times things are just being overthought on the road as well, too, when it comes to mental preparation for this team. And the Florida Panthers don't have too much time in between. They'll practice today at 2 p.m. in Edmonton before taking on the Edmonton Oilers on Thursday. We'll preview that game tomorrow, and then a back-to-back against the Vancouver Canucks on Friday at Rogers Place. So that not off to a great start for this Florida Panthers team. I talked about how 7 points for this team would be a very encouraging road trip, but the maximum now is they can get 8 in this one, and it starts with a W on Thursday against Edmonton, and to really set up this road trip on a better note. And if they lose to Edmonton, especially in regulation, we might have to have some hard conversations here on Locked On Panthers, and hopefully we won't have to. This it's nuts how good vibes we've been in with the Panthers and their home success, and it's just been almost a complete 180 on the road. But before we break down the preview, the Thursday game against the Edmonton Oilers, we're going to talk about a few announcements that the NHL made today based on COVID and the PHF as well. We're going to talk about the PHF in the next segment on Locked On Panthers. But first, I want to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march towards the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So for the NHL, they have announced that there will be no new COVID rules for the NHL post All-Star break. And it's the timing is not a surprise of why after the All-Star break that they're putting these new COVID rules. What are the COVID rules? Is that they're not going to test asymptomatic players, and they're only going to test people who, when they cross the border, and if symptoms arrive after they cross the border. So the NHL, the reason why they're doing this, it's kind of obvious why they're doing this, is that they're set to announce their postponements from not every, but most games that were postponed in late December due to the spread of the Omicron variant. And the NHL doesn't want any disruption when it comes to more rescheduling. So it's basically the NHL saying, see no COVID, hear no COVID, speak no COVID. So unless it's cross-border travel, and one of two things are going to happen after the All-Star break and when cross-border travel happens and testing goes on, is you're either going to have a lot of players who all test negative and they've had an outbreak before and they did not know about it, or you're going to have a big outbreak already and it might cause the whole team to go on a pause. But let's also remember that a lot of the NHL has already been on the COVID list at some point this season. So the chances of it testing positive again, I'm not sure. But you can get COVID again as well. But how long in between can you get it? And that's something that we still just don't know. We've been in this since March of 2020 and we still don't know. So it's just so there's just so much uncertainty that we just don't know all the right answers. And of course, with the NHL trying to help their bottom line, let's just call it as it is. They're trying to help their bottom line. Of course, the players owe the escrow on the salary cap, which will prevent it from increasing for like the next 2 years. So the NHL is trying to satisfy their TV partners, the arenas, to fill in fans. I mean, the reason why a lot of Canadian teams have postponed games is due to attendance rules, and they want to make sure that they're not playing those games without any fans. They want to put fans in those seats, and they want those teams to make money. So that's the reason. That's the reason why. So it's not a lot of it due to big outbreaks recently, and it's just their way of trying to just recoup some of that uh, lost income for them. So it's a difficult situation, and there's no perfect answers for this. That's the thing, and that's something that I've learned how to accept a little bit, and it's really hard to process as well because you might have COVID right now. I might have COVID. Your neighbor right next to you might have COVID right now, and we might not even know about it. And then we're going out and spreading something that we don't know that we have. And the NHL not testing people asymptomatic, it's a little bit uneasy, a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little uneasy, but the NHL, of course, it's not a surprise that they're trying to satisfy all the people that they have to satisfy, and the TV partners and owners. And the next thing I want to talk about before we wrap up the show is the PHF, the Professional Hockey Federation. This the ESPN Plus has adopted this league, the broadcasting rights to showcase women's hockey on their platforms. One of our hosts on the Locked On Network, Erica Ayala, is actually one of the play-by-play broadcasters of the PHF, and she does an outstanding job. I can't say that I've watched every single game of the PHF. I've watched like a little bit of like one or two, but the growth of hockey and women's hockey and fair wages for the players in the PHF is going up. The PHF is going to invest in the next few years, and we're talking about this going through a pandemic still. That they're going to increase their salary cap in the next few years. This year is $150K with the average salary of $7,500, which of course is not livable. If you spread that out throughout 12 months, it's only a couple $1,000s for these players. So these players have to find different day jobs outside of the PHF. Then in 21-22, 300K is the salary cap, where the average salary would be $15,000. A little better. The players won't have to work as much off the ice, and they can focus on their craft. Great news. And then this is the big one. 2022-2023, 750K with the average salary $37,500. That's below the average income of an earner in the United States, but it's still somewhat livable that this can be their only job. And if they want to get some other type of side hustles, they can do it whenever they want. And it's not something urgent for them to do outside of this. And they could just focus more on their craft. And it's great. It's great for the growth of the game. It gives hope for people who want to earn the same amount, and they see all these NHL players making millions and millions of dollars. I know NHL compared to the other three major American sports, and Canadian, that they don't make as much, but still these hockey players are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, while players on the PHF are struggling to make ends meet. So it's just a step in the right direction for the players for the PHF, and I couldn't be more excited that they're getting their opportunity to get a bigger payday than what they already were. So a step in the right direction, and excuse me, and hopefully that also that it does increase more than $37,000 in the near future, as the PHF also looks to expand as well. So that's what we can only hope, but also to help promote the PHF as well. So that's what I can encourage, and I will do my absolute best to also watch more of the PHF as well. I know this is excuse me. I know this is Locked On Panthers, but I also want to encourage more people to invest in the PHF, and that's what's going to investing in the PHF and the viewership is going to help bring more of the money into the PHF and help pay their players more. So that's what I can hope to for the PHF and in their mission to pay their players almost an equal wage to the men, and hopefully it does eventually one day. So tomorrow on Locked On Panthers, we're going to preview Thursday night's matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, a matchup of top four picks all on the ice at the same time for the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. So it's going to be a fun one. The Edmonton Oilers are kind of in a free fall right now. The Florida Panthers, despite dropping their game against Calgary, they've been on the upward trajectory as they continue their quest to win the division, while the Edmonton Oilers are just trying to stay afloat and try to make the playoffs. So we'll talk about that more on tomorrow's episode on Locked On Panthers. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. Will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Bets, your one-stop shop for all things gambling. Locked On Bets, hosted by Boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms, so subscribe to Locked On Bets podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.